Her daughter-in-law erased her from Instagram and the deed on the same day. Linda Garrison, retired nurse and widow, didn't flinch. Jason, her only son, stood by while Megan smiled for the camera like the house was hers alone. By nightfall, a lien was filed, a trust rewritten, and her attorney looped in. She'd once handed over $96,000 in quiet faith. Now she was reclaiming every cent in public silence. When the foreclosure notice hit their doorstep, it wouldn't come with her name, just her handwriting. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The antique rocker scraped gently against the new hardwood floor as I eased it into the corner of the living room, sunlight spilling across its curved arms like a blessing. I paused, running my fingers over the familiar notches worn into the wood, one from Jason's toy train, one from the IV pole that scraped it the week my husband passed. "This is the last box," I called from the doorway, catching my breath, "unless you count the garage mess." Jason, sweating through a Charlotte Panthers t-shirt, jogged down the stairs with a crooked smile. "We'll get to it, Mom, eventually." Megan followed behind, balancing a tall vase of dried pampas grass that looked like it came with its own influencer. "Wow, you really brought that thing?" She said it like the chair had grown mold. I turned slowly. "Yes, the rocker." I smiled, choosing softness. "It belonged to my grandmother. It's been through a lot with us." Megan's lips thinned. "It's just, with the look we're going for, I don't know if it really fits. We're thinking more minimal, clean, less retirement home." I swallowed that like a dry aspirin. "It's just one chair," I said gently. "And it's already here." Jason gave me a small, tired shrug like he wanted to stay out of it. The next morning, I brought over muffins and gloves, ready to help unpack the kitchen, maybe hang the framed wedding photo they'd left sideways on the counter. The front door was ajar. I stepped inside to the smell of paint thinner and lavender candles, a scent I didn't recognize as home. "Hello?" I called. My voice echoed oddly. Boxes were gone, shelves up, every surface scrubbed sterile white. The rocker, my grandmother's rocker, was missing. The corner it had claimed for 100 memories now held a plastic fiddle leaf fig and a tufted beige ottoman. My breath caught. I turned sharply, heart thumping harder than it should have for a woman who survived a stroke at 62. Jason looked up from the hallway. "Oh, hey, Mom, Megan's running errands. You here to drop off the crock-pot?" "Where's the chair?" My voice came out thin. He blinked, then looked past me as if searching for a better answer on the walls. "Oh, Megan got rid of it. Said it didn't match the vibe. Donated, I think?" "Donated." My throat closed. "Without asking?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "She figured it was old, not really part of the new look. We're trying to streamline things. Modern energy," she said. I took a slow step back, barely hearing him now. That chair cradled Jason when he had the flu at 7 and wouldn't sleep unless I rocked him through the fever. That chair held my husband as he breathed his last at 3:17 a.m., my hand in his skin cold and fading. That chair caught me when I fell coming back from the mailbox 2 winters ago, the cracked ankle, the pain, the way it somehow made me feel grounded just by being still. I gripped the doorknob to stay upright. Jason must have read something in my face. "We didn't mean to upset you," he added quickly. "It's just a chair." "No," I whispered. "It wasn't." I turned without another word, stepping back into the sunlit driveway, the morning bird song mocking in its cheer. I sat in my car, engine off, and stared at the white facade of the house I helped them buy. A house that, for all its clean lines and matching throw pillows, suddenly looked hollow. I remembered wrapping that chair in blankets, wedging it into the truck like sacred cargo. Jason had said, "It's a great piece. We'll make it work." Megan nodded then. She lied with her smile. I started the engine, the old Buick coughing to life. My hands trembled slightly on the wheel, but my jaw set firm. There's a line you don't cross with people who've buried love and held life in their hands. They didn't just throw away a chair. The smell of lemon disinfectant hit me before I even crossed the threshold, sharp, sterile, and cold. The walls gleamed bone-white, scrubbed of texture and story, like a hospital that forgot it was ever a home. Jason held the door open as I stepped inside, juggling a casserole dish and a tote bag full of books. "Megan's just finishing up in the dining room," he said, kissing my cheek absently. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. The living room looked like a magazine spread: white boucle chairs, acrylic coffee table, a throw blanket folded like a promise no one kept. It was beautiful in the way hotel lobbies are beautiful: untouched, unlived in, forgettable. "Thought I'd help you two unpack the last of those boxes in the den," I said, placing the casserole on the counter. "Books, I think?" Megan appeared around the corner, barefoot, holding a sage-colored candle in a glass jar labeled Calm Vibes. She gave a quick, polite smile. "Oh, you don't need to worry about that, Linda. We're doing a bit of a purge, trying to be intentional with the space." "Books aren't clutter," I said before I could stop myself. "They're memory." Megan just shrugged, setting the candle on a narrow console table that hadn't been there yesterday. "Sure, but we're leaning minimalist. You know, light, bright, no visual chaos." She motioned vaguely to the walls like they were somehow in agreement. I walked toward the hallway, the familiar creak in the floorboards now muffled by a new runner rug, beige with a single black stripe. The guest room was half done, boxes lined neatly like unwanted guests. One box, labeled Miscellaneous, LG, sat open. Inside, the embroidered pillow from my old porch swing, the brass-framed photo of Jason as a toddler in his Halloween lion costume, and a small wooden box. I opened it with slow fingers. There, wrapped in yellowed tissue, was my husband's military medal, the Bronze Star he earned in Vietnam. It used to hang in our living room, centered above the fireplace. Now it sat crooked in a cardboard grave, between an old church bulletin and a chipped mug from Myrtle Beach. My jaw tensed. I reached for the frame and held it flat in my lap. Dust clung to the glass like it, too, had been forgotten. "Is there a reason this wasn't unpacked?" I asked, louder than I meant to. Megan leaned into the doorway, arms crossed. "Oh, that?" We just weren't sure where to put it. "It's kind of heavy visually. We're trying to keep a cleaner aesthetic." "Cleaner than a man's legacy?" I said, the words sharper than I intended. She blinked, then gave a thin smile that didn't touch her eyes. "You know we respect his service, but that doesn't mean it has to be on display." Jason hovered behind her, eyes darting from her to me like a spectator who didn't buy a ticket to the fight. "I see," I said, folding the tissue back around the frame. My hands were steady, but my breath came tight. As I walked out to my car later, the light hit the side of the house. New vinyl siding, fresh landscaping, a professionally hung wreath that read, "Gather." I stood for a moment, watching Megan through the window, arranging dried eucalyptus in a ceramic vase. It all looked so curated, so hollow. I thought of the home my husband and I once planned to give Jason, the one with a wraparound porch, a fireplace big enough for stockings, a real garden. But that dream changed. Jason said he wanted something newer, closer to town. And when they found this fixer-upper, they asked if I could help with the down payment. I gave them the money without blinking. $96,000, a mixture of my husband's pension and the savings we once earmarked for a retirement trip we never took. Jason called it a family investment. Megan called it such a blessing. Now I was watching them repaint legacy into silence. That night, I opened my safe. Inside, birth certificates, the deed to my own house, my husband's honorable discharge papers, and tucked between two manila folders was the agreement, the one Jason signed when I transferred the funds. It wasn't a gift. I stared at the scanned bank statement on my kitchen table like it might confess something new. $96,000, wired directly from my joint savings account 1 week after Jason called me in a hushed voice, saying the house would slip away unless they moved fast. He said, "It's just a bridge, Mom. We'll handle the rest." Megan chimed in over speaker, her voice syrupy. "We're just so grateful. You're saving our future." But the money came from my past, From the pension my husband left behind, from the careful sacrifices we made, skipping new cars and fancy dinners so we could one day sit on a porch swing and watch our grandchildren play. I had kept every receipt, every transfer slip, but I also remembered what I didn't sign: a gift letter. The difference between a gift and a loan isn't just paperwork, it's power. And they'd forgotten that. I picked up my phone and called an old friend from church, Evelyn Daniels, whose brother was a real estate attorney down in Raleigh. By that afternoon, I had an appointment. The law office smelled like polished wood and lemon wax. The receptionist offered me lemon water. I declined. Mr. Parker, mid-50s, silver hair and sharp glasses, skimmed the folder I handed him. "This private agreement here, this is your leverage," he said, tapping the paper Jason had signed the day we made the transfer. "It outlines repayment, no interest, contingent upon home value increase, legally enforceable." I let that sink. So I still have a financial stake? He looked over his glasses. "Yes, ma'am, especially since there's no formal release or gift letter. If they sold the home tomorrow, you'd be entitled to your share." Outside the office, the sun was too bright. I sat in my car with the air off, heart ticking like a metronome. I pulled my phone from my bag, opened my camera roll, and scrolled back to a screenshot I'd saved 2 months ago. Megan posing on the front porch in a wide-brimmed hat, holding a coffee mug that said, "Boss Energy." The caption read, "We did it on our own. No handouts. Just hustle." In the comments, someone asked, "Didn't her mom help with the down payment?" Megan replied, "She's just a nurse. She doesn't get interior design." I closed my phone before I threw it. Just a nurse. They always said that part like it was a limitation, never a credential. I was just a nurse when I stayed up 48 hours during Hurricane Fran because the generator failed. Just a nurse when I carried an unconscious 6-year-old out of a burning wing with my arms shaking. Just a nurse when I sat with a stranger while he died because his family couldn't get there in time. And I was just a nurse when I cared for my husband while the chemo made him forget his own name. That night I pulled a cedar box from the top of my closet and opened it carefully. Inside, a letter written in my husband's shaky handwriting. I'd never read it more than once. "Linda, if I go first, promise me you'll never let anyone treat your quiet like weakness. You've carried too much to ever be small." I folded the letter and returned it to the box, brushing dust from the edges. They wanted modern and minimal. They'd forgotten where their foundation came from. The invitation never came. I found out about the housewarming party by Megan through a neighbor, Sherry, who casually mentioned she was so excited to see the renovations Saturday night. I smiled, nodded like I knew, like I had been told. That evening, I checked my email 3 times. Nothing. But on Instagram, there it was, a story Megan had posted, white calligraphy over a photo of a champagne flute. "Grateful for new beginnings. Come celebrate the space we built with our own hands. No help, just hustle." No RSVP list with my name, no phone call. Still, I packed up a tray of my deviled eggs, the ones Jason used to sneak from the fridge before dinner even started, and a bag of Sonic ice, just like Megan always requested when she hosted. By the time I pulled up, dusk had painted the sky lavender. Cars lined the curb. Laughter spilled from the open windows like a sound I wasn't invited to be part of. I walked up the front path, the tray sweating through foil in my arms. Megan opened the door and stopped short. "Oh." Her smile barely flickered. "Hey, I didn't realize you were coming." "You must have missed me on the list," I said lightly, stepping forward. She didn't move. "Could you use the side entrance? We're trying to keep the front space for flow. There's a folding table near the kitchen where you can drop those." I stared at her. "The side entrance?" Jason appeared behind her. "Hey, Mom." He rubbed the back of his neck. "It's just a little crowded in here. Megan's trying to keep it organized." He didn't look me in the eyes. I walked around the side of the house, past a row of solar lanterns that hadn't been there the week before. The side door creaked open onto the kitchen, already filled with crystal-cut plastic cups and charcuterie spreads that looked like they'd been styled by a photographer. I slid my eggs between 2 trays of imported olives and a crudité tower shaped like a tree. No one greeted me. No one even noticed I was there. From the living room, I heard Megan's voice rise like a bell. We really did everything ourselves, from demo to design. It's been a journey, but when you want something bad enough, you don't wait around for help. Another voice laughed, female, amused. Didn't Jason's mom pitch in? She was supportive, emotionally, Megan replied, and the words were lacquered in sugar. But no, this was all us. Every dollar the words hit with surgical precision, not shouted, not cruel, just clean, quiet erasure. I stayed by the fridge, my hands wrapped around a solo cup of flat ginger ale. The kitchen light buzzed faintly above me. I took a sip, swallowed glass. Jason passed by once, gave me a quick nod, like I was the mail carrier and not the woman who'd once bathed him in a kitchen sink. At some point, I slipped out. The screen door barely made a sound behind me. I sat on my own porch that night, my shoes off, the boards warm beneath my feet. A faint breeze rustled the trees. A cricket chirped near the mailbox. No rocking chair beneath me now, just the memory of it. I looked at the stars and tried to breathe through the ache pressing under my ribs. Not rage, not even grief. Something colder, something that didn't burn, but calcified. My husband would have spoken up, would have mad, Jason C., but he wasn't here. I stood up slowly, went inside, and clicked the lamp on above my desk. The lawyer's business card was still where I left it, tucked under a coaster. I picked it up, stared at the embossed print, then reached for the phone. I scheduled a second meeting with the attorney. The air inside Parker's office was cool, but my palms sweated as I handed over the agreement, the one Jason signed, the one I had reread until the ink felt memorized. Mr. Parker adjusted his glasses and flipped through the pages slowly. His desk smelled faintly of varnish and something citrusy, clean, clinical, almost smug. He tapped his finger against the second page. Here. He turned the paper toward me and pointed to a bolded sentence tucked halfway down the paragraph. Violation of conditions, including misrepresentation, material exclusion, or failure to honor familial equity, shall trigger immediate repayment or equivalent compensation through lien or property claim. He looked up at me, calm but focused. That's your lever, Mrs. Garrison. A clause like this doesn't wait for permission. It waits for a line to be crossed. I let out a slow breath, one I hadn't realized I'd been holding since that cursed housewarming party. And what counts as a line? He leaned back. Lying about your financial role, excluding you from what was promised to be shared equity, public denial. It's all here. He tapped again. You have grounds. That word, grounds, felt heavy, fertile, like something I could finally plant after months of watching things die. Back home, I opened a new leather-bound notebook and titled the first page, Record of Violations. I wrote the date, the incident, and the quote. Her help was emotional, not financial. Underlined twice. The next day, I made 3 calls. My estate planner, my financial advisor, and the attorney. Jason's name was quietly removed as my financial power of attorney. A new trust was drawn up, not in his name, not in Megan's. It went to Lily, my granddaughter, the only one in that house who still asked me about my favorite color. I stopped by the bank, moved $112,000, pension leftovers and rollover CDs, into the trust account. When the teller asked if I wanted to notify anyone, I smiled and said, not just yet. That night, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short. Megan's voice, tight, trying to sound casual. Hey, just confirming you're not planning to file anything weird, are you? It would really stress Jason out. Let's just talk it through, okay? I didn't call back. I forwarded the message to Mr. Parker. The following week I started driving by the house more often, not close enough to be noticed, just enough to observe. On a Tuesday morning I saw a man in a navy suit leaving the house, briefcase in hand, not a contractor. Later that evening, while Jason was at work, Megan posted a selfie in her office, their guest room converted, with the caption, "Secured the future today. Sometimes you gotta bet on yourself." I stared at the photo, zoomed in. A folder on the desk read, "Home Equity Application." I blinked. My stomach flipped like it had missed a step. The next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office and requested the most recent filings on their property. The woman at the counter asked if I was the homeowner. "I'm on the equity agreement," I said, "and I have reason to believe there's been unauthorized activity." Her fingers clicked the keyboard faster than I expected. A few minutes later, she handed me a printout. I read it 3 times just to be sure. On February 12th, Megan Garrison had taken out a personal loan, secured against the home's projected equity. Jason hadn't co-signed. Megan had listed herself as primary decision-maker. She'd gambled part of the house's value like it was hers alone, even though it wasn't hers to bet. My pulse beat behind my eyes. I felt it like a warning. That night, I stood in front of my safe again. I pulled out the deed records I'd saved from the original sale. My name wasn't on the mortgage, but I had insisted on being included in the deed agreement. That line, small but sharp, was my insurance. Now I needed proof of what Megan had done. Not hearsay, not Instagram breadcrumbs, real, legal documentation. The email was forwarded to me by mistake. An auto-notification from a mortgage lender addressed to Jason Garrison and Megan Garrison, thanking them for initiating a refinance application. Subject line: Next steps toward full home ownership. The file attached was a scanned request for release of my name. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no greeting, no warning, just a quiet attempt to vanish me from their books. They weren't trying to pay me back, they were trying to erase me. I forwarded the email to my attorney with a 1-line note, "Confirm if this violates clause." 2 days later, I got the reply, "It absolutely does." The flip, it seemed, wasn't going well. Jason and Megan had apparently planned to refinance me off the deed, fully take on the mortgage, and restructure the family arrangement, as the broker put it in a later call. But Megan's credit wasn't just bad, it was cratered. Student loans, unpaid balances, a credit card she hadn't touched in months still carrying holiday debt. The broker told me, in polite, careful language, that Megan's application had triggered red flags. Something about stated income inconsistencies. Translation? She was faking it for the bank, just like she faked it online. That night, I opened her public Instagram account. She'd posted a reel of herself rearranging pillows in her home office. The caption, "So proud to say I built this space myself. From sweat equity to business blueprint, new branding coming soon." In the background, I spotted a staging board with brand color palettes and a book titled The Influencer's Playbook. I clicked to her bio. She'd updated it. Interior consultant. $, for collabs. Jason had once wanted to be a high school history teacher. I wondered if he even noticed what the house was turning into. The next morning, I requested a formal appraisal of the property. Not to sell, not yet. But I needed the numbers. If they wanted to pretend I was never part of this, I wanted hard proof that I was. The appraiser, a tall woman named Patrice, met me at the curb of the house with a clipboard and a tired smile. "You must be Linda Garrison," I said, offering my hand. "I helped buy it." She looked at the file. "Right, joint deed holder. You're not on the mortgage, but you're listed on the deed." I nodded, calm on the surface. "Let me know if you need access to anything they've locked up. I can get it." She raised a brow but didn't ask. "You'd be surprised how often that's necessary." While Patrice walked the perimeter, measuring and scribbling notes, I stood near the porch. The same porch where Megan had posed for that "no help, just hustle" photo last month. The steps were beginning to crack. The railing shook slightly when I pressed my hand to it. I watched as Megan pulled into the driveway in her leased SUV. She stepped out wearing oversized sunglasses, holding a Starbucks iced drink she couldn't afford. She didn't acknowledge me, just paused, then disappeared inside. 15 minutes later, Patrice returned to her car and closed her clipboard. "It's a pretty house," she said, "but it's got more appearance than stability." I smiled, tight-lipped. "That's the theme around here." Before she left, she turned back toward me, flipping to the last page. "Just so you know, your name, still listed under vested interest, so whatever their plans were, they're not moving forward without you." It was the backsplash that stopped me. Subway tile, glossy white, photographed in morning light, framed just right to catch the brass faucet gleaming like new money. Megan had posted a carousel of before and after photos on her newly rebranded Instagram account, At Home by Megan G. The caption read, "We turned a rundown fixer-upper into our forever home. No family handouts, just sweat, vision, and a whole lot of elbow grease. Built it ourselves." From zero to Zillow. No mention of the $96,000 wired from my account, no nod to the woman who once held her hair back while she sobbed through morning sickness. I scrolled through the comments. Strangers swooned. Gorgeous. Obsessed with the lighting. Total inspo. Then I saw it. A familiar name. My neighbor, Brenda. "Love what you've done, Megan. Your MIL must be so proud." And Megan's reply, fast and calculated, "Thanks, Brenda. We did it all ourselves. No help, just hustle." My hands went cold around the mug I hadn't realized I was holding. The tea inside had gone bitter. I opened my screenshot tool and captured the exchange. Then I scrolled back through older posts, deleted captions, reworded bios, photos where Jason once stood, now cropped into the background like bad lighting. Megan wasn't just curating her house. She was erasing her history. The next day, Jason called. I didn't answer the first time. Or the second. On the third, I picked up. "Hey, Mom," he said, trying for casual. His voice sounded tight, like someone walking barefoot on gravel. "What do you need?" I asked. I wasn't angry. I was finished with pretending. He exhaled through his nose. "I know Megan's posts weren't ideal. She's under a lot of pressure with her business stuff. We've just got a lot riding on public image right now. Could you not—" "Not what?" I interrupted. "Not stir things up," he said quickly. "Not leave comments, not— Screenshot, she knows you follow her." I leaned against the kitchen counter and looked out the window at the overgrown camellia bush my husband planted before the diagnosis. "So was that chair," I said quietly, "and you tossed it like trash." There was a pause. Then, "Mom?" "No." "Jason, listen to me." My voice didn't rise, but it sharpened. "You told people I was just emotional support. You let her do that. You let her humiliate me in my own contribution. So if your wife wants to go viral, she'd better be ready to go honest." He didn't respond. Only silence. I didn't fill it for him. I let him sit in it. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of the betrayal, that ache had settled weeks ago, but because I was remembering something Mr. Parker said during our last meeting. "People think property is just walls and beams. But legacy," he'd said, "legacy leaves fingerprints." At 2:17 a.m., I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my attorney. I attached the screenshots, linked Megan's Instagram profile, and titled it simply, "Documented Misrepresentation, Online and Public." I ended the email with a single line. "She wants to decorate over truth. I want it on record." The next morning, the phone rang just as I was pouring my first cup of coffee. The number on the screen was the bank. I answered. A polite woman on the other end verified who I was, then said, "We're reaching out regarding the mortgage for 1846 Greenvale Drive. As co-party on the deed, you're being notified that the account is now officially 30 days past due." I blinked, once, then again. "Excuse me? There's been no payment posted since last month. If this continues, the account may proceed to default proceedings. We are required to notify all parties with equity interest." Outside, the wind picked up suddenly, rattling the empty porch. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. "Thank you," I said and hung up. Debt has a smell. It's not dramatic like fire or familiar like dust. It's sharp and metallic, the scent of stress clinging to air-conditioned silence, the kind you breathe in bank lobbies or overhear in whispers at gas pumps when cards don't swipe. I smelled it in Megan's voice the day after the bank called. She posted a story at 8:42 a.m. Perfect lighting, frosted glassware, fake laugh. Can't wait for our big reveal this weekend. We've been working so hard behind the scenes to level up the brand." But underneath the filtered cheer, something cracked. She wore the same blouse she wore 2 days ago, only flipped inside out to hide the oil stain. I drove to the county office that same afternoon. The building was a cold box of concrete and forgotten ambition, with flickering fluorescent lights and a front desk clerk who didn't bother to look up when I arrived. "Need to file a lien," I said, placing the paperwork on the counter. "For what kind of property interest?" she asked without glancing up. I slid the equity agreement toward her. "Co-funder of the purchase, not on the mortgage, on the deed. They're behind on payments." That got her attention. She adjusted her glasses, skimmed the page, then nodded. "You're within rights. Want to initiate notice of default as well?" "Not yet," I said. "Let's start with the lien." It took 15 minutes. 15 minutes to shift the ground beneath their feet. By law, they had to be notified. But the letter wouldn't arrive until Monday. I had a long weekend to think about what that house cost me, and what it still owed. On Saturday, Megan threw her brand reveal party. I wasn't invited. Again. I parked a block away, facing the house I helped them buy, now lit up with string lights and fake eucalyptus wreaths, as if twinkle bulbs could hide a crumbling foundation. Guests arrived in heels and wide-brim hats, sipping out of mason jars and snapping selfies by the front porch sign that read, "Grit and Grace Design Co." I recognized a few faces. Jason's old co-worker from the school board, one of Megan's yoga instructors, people who smiled with their teeth but never asked who paid for the view. I stayed in the car, engine off, hands folded in my lap. My phone buzzed once, a text from Brenda. "You here?" I didn't respond. Inside, I could see Megan gesturing at the walls like they were part of her origin story. Jason followed behind her, quieter now, nodding too much. When they finally stepped outside, champagne flutes in hand, I rolled down the window just enough to hear. "We launched this space with nothing but vision," Megan said, her voice crisp over the hum of conversation. "No loans, no help, just belief in ourselves." Even Jason looked at her then. Not like a husband, like a man trying to remember how the hell they got here. That night I printed the lien notice myself, just to hold it. Just to feel the weight of action. The paper was cold, but it hummed with quiet justice. I slipped it into an envelope. On the front, I didn't write their names. Just the address. No return, no flourish, just impact. Then I added a separate note, handwritten, clipped inside. "You have 14 days to respond before I move to claim equity." The silence lasted 2 days. Then the calls started. Jason first. 3 missed ones before noon. Then a 4th, his name popping up again like it was urgent. Like I didn't already know why, I let it ring until voicemail. His message was short, anxious. "Mom, we got your letter. Just call me, okay? Don't do anything drastic. We can fix this." By the 5th call, I picked up. "Jason," I said flatly. He sighed like relief might save him. "Thank God. Listen, Megan's upset." "She should be," I cut in. "So should you. We didn't know it'd escalate like this. Can't we just talk?" "No," I said. "You'll speak through counsel." There was a pause on the line. Wounded silence, as if the distance between us was a surprise to him. "I'm your son," he said finally, quietly. "And I was your co-investor," I replied. "You chose to ignore both." I ended the call. Later that day, an unknown number rang. Voicemail again. A woman's voice, clipped and neutral. "Ms. Garrison, I'm the assigned mediator on behalf of Jason and Megan Garrison. They've asked me to reach out to propose an alternative to court. Attached is a suggested settlement offer." The email arrived minutes later. I opened it. $21,000. That was their offer. $21,000 for silence, for withdrawal, for dignity in disguise. I laughed once. It startled even me. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of sweet tea, and stared out the window while the ice cracked and hissed. They still thought this was about money. That night, I opened the cedar box again, the one with my husband's letters and military pins, still tucked between velvet folds. There was a note, yellowed and creased at the edges. He had written it years ago, after Jason's first major mistake, skipping college orientation to elope with a girl we'd never met. You honor your mother, or someone else will teach you how. The weight of that sentence never felt more real. The next morning, I sat with my estate attorney, a slim, sharp woman named Chelsea, who never blinked more than she needed to. I want to update the trust, I said. She nodded. Remove Jason? Yes, I replied. He'll still get my memories, not my money. And the granddaughter? Lily stays on everything. I paused. She's the only one in that house who still sees me as a person. By sunset, the paperwork was done, clean, legally sound. 2 days later, I saw Megan's latest Instagram post, a vague, pretty image of a bouquet wilting in an expensive vase. The caption read, "Some seasons are about pruning. Trust the process." Beneath it, a comment, "Hope everything's okay, Queen." Her reply, "Just handling business like a boss. We're good." It must have killed her to pretend strength. But I knew better. The following Monday, I received a formal mediation request. It was printed on thick paper with embossed headers, performative professionalism. The meeting was scheduled for the end of the week. I stood in front of my closet that morning, flipping past soft pastels and floral blouses until my hand stopped on black. A fitted blazer, wool, lined with silk. I wore it to my husband's memorial service, and now I wore it again, not for grief, for power. The conference room smelled like copier ink and compromise, faux leather chairs, faux wood table, real consequences. Jason and Megan were already seated when I walked in, side by side like news anchors, dressed in coordinated navy and beige. Her heels clicked when she stood to greet me, chin high, voice syruped thin. "Linda, you look lovely. That's a powerful color." I nodded, lowering my black bag into the chair beside me. "It's not for mourning," I said, unbuttoning my blazer. "It's for business." The mediator, a woman in her early 40s with a practiced smile and a stack of printed neutrality, extended her hand to me. "Ms. Garrison, thank you for coming. We're here to try and reach a mutual understanding." Megan leaned in, already painting the narrative. "We're hoping this can just be a conversation. I think so much of this is generational. Different values, different expectations." I opened my folder slowly and slid a document across the table. "This is the transfer record," I said, $96,000, from my account, the day before your purchase closed." Megan blinked. Jason didn't move. I added another page. "This is the signed agreement, no interest loan, trigger clause included." Jason cleared his throat, his voice barely above a whisper. "We thought that wasn't official, that it was like more symbolic." "Law doesn't care about symbols," I said. "It cares about signatures." The mediator tried to intervene. "Let's take this one step at a time. Ms. Garrison, what are you asking for today?" I looked directly at Jason. "I'm offering 2 choices." Megan's smile tightened. "Option 1. You repay the $96,000 within 60 days. Megan's hand twitched beneath the table. Jason blinked too slowly. "Option 2, I continued. I file for a partition sale of the home. The house gets sold. Proceeds get divided by legal ownership." "You'd sell the house out from under your own son?" Megan hissed, voice sharp now, polished gone. I turned to her, calm. "You already did. You just didn't tell him." Her face flushed. "I know about the investor, Megan. The one you brought in on your design brand." Jason turned toward her like he'd just heard the floor creak under a trapdoor. "Investor?" She blinked rapidly, like she could blink her way out of it. "I didn't think it mattered. It was private, a side project." I reached into my bag and pulled out the filing from the county office. "You signed a private equity agreement, using the projected value of the home as collateral. Without full ownership, that's called fraudulent leverage." The mediator stiffened. "Is there documentation of this?" I nodded. "And I've already forwarded it to the investor. Along with a copy of the deed. My name is on it. Megan sold value she didn't own." Jason stood slowly. His chair groaned. "You did what?" I didn't think it would catch up to us, Megan said too quickly. It was supposed to be silent backing, just a placeholder until we refinanced, which failed, I cut in, because your credit's a house of cards. Jason sat back down like the weight of her choices landed all at once on his shoulders. Megan folded her arms. What do you want? A public apology? You want us to write you a check and say we're sorry? I want what I'm owed, I said. And I want you to stop acting like class is something you can buy at West Elm. The room fell silent. The only sound was the HVAC hum and the shuffle of the mediator adjusting her notes. I'll be formalizing the lien by end of week, I said, standing and collecting my papers. If I don't receive repayment, I'll file for partition. If that investor tries to move forward, they'll be in breach of contract. Megan's voice was barely audible. That deal was everything. And now, I said, walking toward the door, that deal is void. The email I sent that morning was 6 lines long, no emotion, no backstory, just a PDF of the deed, my contact information, and one sentence typed in bold: I am a co-owner of this property. Ms. Megan Garrison did not have the legal authority to offer you collateral. By 2:14 p.m., the investor responded, Thank you for the clarification. Our agreement is now void. Please consider this my formal withdrawal from the project. Given the potential legal exposure, we will not be moving forward. Attached was a digital signature withdrawal form, time-stamped, irrevocable. I sat back in my chair, tea growing cold on the windowsill, and watched the collapse begin in real time. At 3:11 p.m., Megan's Instagram bio changed. Taking a break. Thank you for the support. By 4:23, the grid was gone. Every post archived or deleted. Her face vanished from her so-called brand. At home. By Megan G went silent. The comments didn't, though. Her last reel remained active, where followers noticed the disappearance. What happened? Did the launch get canceled? Wait, is this about that house ownership drama? The scent of lavender oil and online illusion burned off like morning fog. Later that night, I got a message. It was from Jason. Not a call this time, just a single line, typed so softly it could have been a whisper. I didn't know. I swear I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, You didn't ask. 2 minutes later, the typing base bubble appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. The next morning, Brenda saw me at the farmer's market and leaned in close by the tomatoes. Linda, she whispered, as if we were in church. Is it true? Are they really facing foreclosure? I didn't confirm or deny. I just picked up a sweet potato and inspected it. That afternoon, 2 more neighbors called. One asked if I was okay. The other asked if I was selling your share to someone local. Whispers have legs in a neighborhood like ours. I drove past the house once, slowly, not to snoop, but to observe. The front porch wreath was gone. The landscaping had started to yellow in patches. Megan's SUV wasn't in the driveway. Jason's truck was. Lights were on in only 2 rooms. A shadow passed across the upstairs window. Pacing. Unsettled. The woman who once posted twice a day about shiplap and self-love had gone silent. She'd built an entire identity around the home, her empire of throw pillows and filtered authenticity, never realizing that foundations matter, even digital ones. The fall wasn't loud. It was humiliating in the way all slow unravelings are. At 8:36 that night, headlights pulled into my driveway. I turned off the lamp and waited, heart steady. A knock, hesitant, not rushed, the way someone knocks when they're not sure they're welcome. Jason stood on my porch like he didn't know whether to knock again or turn around and disappear into the dark. His cheeks were wet, his hair unwashed, and he looked smaller than he ever had, like the man had been scraped away and only the boy remained. I opened the screen door and stepped aside without a word. He hesitated, then walked in. Shoulders sagging like he expected judgment to slam down from the ceiling. The house smelled like lemon balm and baked cornbread. I'd made it out of habit, not expectation. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, hands in the pockets of his wrinkled jeans. I didn't know where else to go, he said finally, voice raw. I nodded and pointed to the kitchen table. Sit. You look hungry. He lowered himself into the chair like it might reject him. I poured him a bowl of soup and set down a slice of cornbread. He stared at it for a moment before digging in. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the kind of silence that doesn't rush, that lets truth crawl up through it. I should have said something sooner, he murmured between bites. About the money, about everything. I didn't respond. I just refilled his glass of water. She told me she had it under control, he said. Megan, the loan, the business, the investor, all of it, said it wasn't my concern, said I already had enough to worry about. She's right, I said, folding a napkin carefully in my lap. You did have enough, and you let her pile on anyway. He looked up, his eyes glossy. I felt like a failure, Mom, asking you for help in the first place. It made me feel like I wasn't a man. And then Megan started telling everyone we did it ourselves, and for a second, I wanted to believe it too. I watched him for a long beat. His fork paused over the last bite of bread, but he didn't lift it. I never asked for pride, I said finally. I asked for honesty. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. I get that now. Do you? I leaned forward. Because apology is not the same as accountability. You can say sorry all day. But that house still has my name on it. That money is still mine. And the mess? That's still yours. He swallowed. I know. I'm willing to help you get your footing again, I said. But not her. Not after what she's done. Jason's shoulders slumped, as if he'd been hoping, maybe even expecting, a different answer. She was scared, he said quietly, panicking. Everything online looked so easy, but real life cost more than she thought it would. Real life always does, I said. That's why you don't build it on filters. He didn't argue. That surprised me. I don't know if the marriage is going to survive this, he admitted, barely above a whisper. She's angry. At me. At you. At everything. I folded my hands in front of me, knuckles lined with years he hadn't seen. If it doesn't, that's your second chance, not your shame. Jason looked up then, really looked, the way he used to after a scraped knee or a lost baseball game, eyes searching for something solid to stand on. You still see me? He asked. I never stopped, I said. You just stepped too far away. He pushed his empty bowl toward the center of the table and stood. I'll sign the withdrawal letter, he said, from the deed, from the house, whatever you need. I didn't thank him. It wasn't a favor. It was step one. The morning I filed for the partition sale, I wore the same black blazer I'd worn to the mediation. Pressed, precise, not one button undone. I walked into the county courthouse alone, the folder tucked under my arm like a final will. At the clerk's desk, I slid the signed petition forward and said, I'm filing to force a sale on shared property. Co-owned. One party won't cooperate. The woman behind the counter looked up, blinking like she wasn't sure whether to offer sympathy or respect. I didn't need either. What I needed was motion. The courtroom was cold, not just the kind of cold that hummed from ceiling vents, but the kind that sat under your ribs when everything you built is about to be measured by strangers. Megan wore a cream turtleneck and a mask of calm that cracked each time the judge flipped a page. Jason sat 2 seats away from her, hands clasped like he was holding his own confession. I wore black again, not for mourning, for remembering. When the judge, a tired man with weathered eyes and a voice like wet gravel, reached the end of the file, he looked up slowly. Ms. Garrison, he said to me, per the documentation, your financial contribution and legal co-ownership entitles you to initiate a partition sale. The opposing party has 30 days to buy out your equity share, otherwise the property will be listed for sale at public market value. He paused. Do you understand the terms? I do, Your Honor, I replied. I didn't look at Megan. I didn't need to. Her silence behind me was enough, brittle and laced with disbelief. Outside the courthouse, I could feel her breath behind me even though we weren't touching. She brushed past me near the parking lot, her heels sharp against the pavement. 3 hours later, the email landed. Subject: You win. Body: Hope you're proud. You ruined us. Everything we built. You could have been graceful. Instead, you were petty. Congratulations on turning your family into a legal circus. No signature, no apology. I didn't reply. I just forwarded it to my attorney and archived the thread. The next week passed in layers, documents, escrow timelines, appraisal adjustments. Then one call changed everything. It came from a number I hadn't seen in years, an old contact saved under Cheryl, Haven House. "Linda," she said, her voice warm with memory, "I heard from a mutual friend you were listed on a house that just came up for sale. 1846 Greenvale?" My breath caught. "Yes, I'm part owner. We're looking to purchase a property to expand our transitional shelter program, something family-sized with a neighborhood setting. It came through our radar this morning. I didn't realize it was yours." I leaned against the counter. "You're serious?" "We are," Cheryl said. "We've already been pre-approved and our board wants to move quickly. It's ideal for what we do. Private backyard, multi-room, access to transit. But it would mean something to us if you were involved beyond the paperwork." "How do you mean?" "We're looking for a community liaison, someone who understands the house, the history, maybe even help design the intake process. You're a nurse. You've done this work. We remember that." I swallowed. The ache in my chest wasn't pain. It was something softer, purpose, maybe. "I'd be honored," I said. The sale moved fast, too fast for Megan's rage to catch up. When she found out the buyer was a nonprofit, she sent one last text. "So now it's charity?" "You're unbelievable." This time I didn't forward it, I just deleted it. The closing day arrived on a crisp morning. I signed my portion in the office with a blue fountain pen. The same kind my husband used for tax season every year. When the papers were sealed, I didn't cry. I felt light, not victorious, not vindictive, just clear. I went home, pulled out a pale blue envelope from my drawer, and slid in a single sheet of cream stationery. In my neatest cursive, I wrote, "Megan, per court ruling and sale agreement, you are to vacate the property by the 30th of next month. Keys should be returned to the escrow agent listed in your packet. Linda." No emotion, no elaboration, just the truth. Handwritten. I walked it to the mailbox myself and lifted the flag. They didn't slam the door when they left. That would have required a kind of fire they no longer had. Instead, it was slow, methodical. A quiet exodus down a driveway once Instagram famous, now streaked with oil spots and faded chalk from a child who hadn't smiled in weeks. I parked a block away, same as I had the night of the housewarming. But this time, there were no mason jars or curated playlists, just two cars, Jason's truck, dented and dusty, and Megan's leased SUV, back bumper covered in residue where her Boss Energy decal had been peeled off. They loaded boxes without speaking. One by one. His went into the bed of the truck, hers into the trunk, then the back seat, then the passenger footwell. At one point, she tried to carry a floor lamp alone, nearly dropped it on the concrete. Jason didn't move to help. She glared but didn't say a word. They looked like strangers doing community service together. I sat with the window cracked, breathing in the scent of cut grass and dried paint, watching their last performance disassemble itself. By noon, the house was empty. Jason left first. No wave, no glance toward the street. Megan stayed a minute longer, adjusting something in the front seat. She paused once on the porch, her hand ghosting the doorknob. Then she pulled it shut behind her and drove off. The wind picked up just enough to rattle the sold sign out front. I waited 10 minutes. Then I walked up the steps. The key, mine now, clicked in the lock like it had been waiting for my hand all along. Inside, the air was bare. No cinnamon candles, no faint scent of lavender disinfectant, just the neutral smell of dry wall, sun-warmed floorboards, and memory. The walls were clean but not fresh. You could still see the faint outline where their wedding photo had hung, and a small gouge in the baseboard where Jason once dropped a toolbox during renovations. I walked the rooms slowly, as if the house might whisper if I moved too fast. In the living room, I stood in the far right corner. the one that used to hold my grandmother's rocking chair. For the first time in months, it felt still, not silent in the hollow way it had after they erased me. Peaceful. The sun hit that corner with soft gold light. I stood in it, let it settle on my face like a benediction. Then I reached into the paper bag I'd brought and pulled out the last box, small, worn at the corners. Inside, I placed my husband's folded American flag, the one that had been tucked in my cedar chest since his funeral. On top of it, I placed a single note, handwritten on cream cardstock. Home is built on memory, not marble. I left it on the floor in the corner where the chair used to rock. No furniture, no filter, just one truth, folded and waiting. I closed the door behind me without locking it. The new owners would be there soon enough, and I'd be there to welcome them, not as a co-owner, but as a partner in what came next. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt done. That night I slept without waking for the first time in over a year, and the next morning, just as the sun broke over the edge of the pine trees out back, I heard a soft knock at my front door, knuckles small, rhythmic. The knock came again, lighter this time, hesitant. When I opened the door, the morning sun stretched long shadows across the porch, and there she was, Lily. 6 years old, hair tangled from sleep, wearing a unicorn nightgown and sneakers on the wrong feet. She stood at the bottom step, cheeks flushed, arms trembling as she gripped the arms of something behind her. She dragged it up with both hands. The chair. My chair. The oak was scraped, paint splattered, with one spindle loose and a thin crack running down the right rocker. The seat cushion, once floral and faded, was gone, replaced with nothing but the bare wood and time. "Mommy said it's junk," Lily said out of breath. "But I like how it moves." I didn't speak. My chest tightened, like all the oxygen had pooled behind my ribs and refused to rise. She gave it one last tug and stepped back proudly, eyes shining. "I saved it. I found it in the garage behind the blue bin. I thought you might want it back." My knees nearly buckled. I sank to the step and opened my arms. She ran into them without hesitation. No speeches, no big music, just the sound of birds in the trees and her tiny heartbeat against my chest. We sat there for a while, long enough for the wind to shift and the neighborhood sprinklers to click on. Later, I carried the chair inside, carefully, tenderly, like I was bringing an ancestor back into the house. I didn't start restoring it right away. First, I let it sit in the center of the room for a day, as if the house needed to reacquaint itself with something that had once kept it whole. The next morning, I pulled out my sanding blocks, wood glue, and a tin of beeswax I hadn't opened since my husband passed. I laid a soft cloth across the kitchen floor and got to work. Each scar, each chip, I treated them not like blemishes but like birthmarks. I didn't erase the story, I revealed it. Lily came by after school each day to help. She held the flashlight. She counted the screws. She asked questions like, "Did this chair really hold Grandpa when he got sick? And did Daddy ever fall asleep in it?" Yes, and yes. By the third evening, the chair looked different. Not new, not polished, but proud. The wood gleamed in the sunset. The spindle was straight again. It no longer creaked like it was begging to retire. It moved. On Friday, Jason came by, alone, a paper bag of groceries in one hand, a folded envelope in the other. "New place," he said, holding out the keys. "Small, 1 bedroom, feels like starting over." I didn't reach for the envelope. He set it gently on the table. "It's the signed withdrawal letter, from everything, just like we discussed." I nodded once. He looked at the chair, then at me. "You fixed it?" "No," I said. "I restored it." He paused, then added, "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I didn't wait for you," I said, not unkindly. I moved forward without bitterness. "You'll need to do the same." "I'm trying," he said quietly. I studied him, older, less sure, humbled in the ways life eventually humbles all of us. "Start new," I told him. "Just don't start blind again." He left not long after. No tears, no final words, just the soft click of a door that no longer needed to slam. That night, Lily curled up in my lap after dinner, a storybook half open in her hand. She pointed to the chair. "It's still a little scratchy," she whispered. "Good," I said. "It remembers." I sat in the old rocker, her in my lap, and together we moved. Not backward, not forward, just steady.